Welcome back to Mind Mastery. Today, we're asking a question that every one of us, from the shop floor to the seminar room, has felt in our bones. Can artificial intelligence truly recognize beauty, or is it just crunching pixels while we feel the magic? With us is Dr. Elena Carruba, pedagogue, strategist, and thinker who will bend the light on this puzzle. Let's not tiptoe. This is one of the urgent cultural conversations of our time. So, big opener, can an algorithm see beauty?
Thank you, Annie. It is a true pleasure to be here. Well, your question is pertinent, Annie. Let's not tiptoe. This is one of the urgent cultural conversations of our time. My very first short answer is no, at least not in the way humans feel beauty. My longer answer would be yes, in a technical sense. AI detects patterns, relationships, statistical regularities. Why does this question matter? Because beauty isn't mere decoration. It orchestrates the way we think, learn, decide, and connect. Across industries, from design to marketing to education, neurolinguistic patterns shape perception and influence behavior at scale. If AI only mimics these patterns, it remains a sophisticated tool. But when AI begins to critically interpret and reflect patterns we cannot consciously see, it transforms our approach to loving, relating, behaving, teaching, leadership, and human development. My work critically assesses AI interventions in our lives, ensuring these technologies enhance rather than dictate our learning, our creativity, and the way we imagine our collective future. In fact, the way I see neurolinguistic programming underpins how industries influence perception, behavior, and decision-making, shaping what we notice and how we respond. In my work, I explore and critically assess AI interventions in our lives, ensuring technology amplifies insight rather than manipulates it. In upcoming episodes, we'll dive deeper into how AI and NLP intersect to transform learning, leadership, and human potential. Beauty is the slow recognition of ourselves in the world, a soft insistence that something outside us has learned our name. Dr. Elena Carruba beauty, we say, as if everyone knows what the word folds into. Yet the moment you try to pin it down, it dissolves into a dozen languages: a child's laugh, the tilt of a painting, a marketing campaign that arrests your thumb scroll, the hush of a cathedral on a weekday noon. In this short exploration, I will define beauty from several vantage points: the everyday human, the artist, the marketer, the devotee, the neuroscientist, show how those views interlock and conflict, and then return, as I do in conversation on the podcast, to the knife-edge question everyone now asks: can artificial intelligence see beauty? I will answer that both plainly and more carefully, then reframe those answers for a spoken, dialogic medium. Beauty as lived. The average humans encounter, for most people, beauty is a bodily event before an idea. It arrives as a knot in the throat, a sudden lightness, a memory that surfaces warm and specific. We recognize it in strangers' faces and in the lingering aftertaste of a good conversation. This is not merely sentimental, it is ecological. Beauty signals meaning, relevance, belonging. Evolution rewarded organisms that noticed patterns that mattered: ripe fruit, safe water, trustworthy faces. Our modern aesthetic response sits on top of that biology, draped in culture. Thus, a beach at dusk can feel beautiful for the same slow neurological reasons that a line of a poem becomes unforgettable. Beauty as craft. The painter, the poet, the make artists trained to move those embodied responses deliberately. The painter studies composition, the balance of mass and void, the orchestration of light, Caravaggio's chiaroscuro, say, the harmonic tensions of colour, the Monet wash, a Rothko field. In book after book on aesthetics, craftsmen show that beauty is often the product of deliberate constraints, a proportion here, an omission there. The golden ratio, fractal patterns in landscapes, the cadence of a stanza, these are tools. But art is not only skill, it is a contract. The artist signals intent and invites a reader or viewer into a shared frame. When the contract is honored, when craft meets readiness, the subjective not loosens into recognition. Beauty as signal. The market and the attention economy. Marketing studies beauty as a vector of attention. If you design product packaging, web pages, or thumbnails, you reduce the problem to questions of salience and affordance. Which image will interrupt? Which color palette will keep attention? What microstory will convert attention into action? In that context, beauty is optimized. It must be legible at small scale, verifiable on a split-second glance, and emotionally freighted enough to persuade. The danger here is reductive. Beauty can be weaponized into clicks and consumption, stripped of ritual, context, and repair. Beauty is sacred, religious and communal dimensions. Religious traditions teach another register. Beauty is here a pathway to the numinous, a doorway to transcendence. Think of Byzantine icons, Sufi poetry, Tibetan mandalas. Beauty is used intentionally to reorder the heart, to teach humility, or to open the imagination to a beyond. In that register, the form matters, but so does ritual. The object is embedded in prayer, communal memory, ethical obligations. Beauty becomes sacred when it carries duty, to protect, to pass on, to restore. Beauty as biology. The neuroscientists map modern neuroscience gives us instruments to see how beauty moves the brain. The same reward circuitry that registers dopamine spikes for food or social connection also lights for aesthetic amazement. Studies of the default mode network, the salience network, the limbic system show that aesthetic experiences involve prediction and surprise. Our brains expect one pattern and are delighted when something both confirms and subverts it. There is also deep learning. Cultural expertise shapes which patterns our brain treats as salient. Thus, beauty is partly universal, fractal patterns, facial symmetry, and partly learned, a nation's taste for color, a family's love for a particular hymn. These 5 perspectives are not contenders, but complementary lenses. Together they show that beauty is ecological, crafted, social, sacred, and neural. It is a conversation between body and culture, between constraint and surprise.
So, where does AI fit into this conversation? The mirror shows us ourselves, and sometimes it shows us a version of ourselves we didn't know we preferred. So the problem is epistemic. How do we know the art is meaningful? Artists worry that AI will flatten meaning. Curators worry about authenticity. Let's pose it as a practical problem and solve it. The problem: institutions, artists, and audiences need a reliable, ethical, and operable method to evaluate AI-produced art for aesthetic value and social meaning.
Let me explain with the careful distinctions I use in lectures and in my research supervision. AI detects patterns. It measures relationships and statistical regularities across enormous datasets. It finds the fractal repetition of branches, the ratio-like symmetry in a face, the color harmonies that historically correlate with human attention. When an algorithm composes an image, it recombines features that have historically elicited responses in people. Technically, this is a kind of modeling of beauty. AI can replicate features that often cause humans to say, "That's beautiful." But feeling beauty, the bodily knot, associative memory, cultural freight, is not computation alone. Emotion involves embodied history, the whisper of past events, the social story we inherit. AI lacks the lived biography that layers meaning into perception. It cannot remember grandmother's song. It can only approximate patterns that co-occur in data labeled as moving or beautiful. Yet here is the crucial nuance: patterns and feelings interact. Human aesthetics are partly predictable. AI, by amplifying and recombining statistical patterns, can approximate and even intensify what we call beauty. When an algorithm produces an image that moves us, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, we experience it through our usual channels: memory, context, bodily reaction. Second, we must ask whether our response was triggered by novelty, by some subconscious pattern the model knows we like, or by genuine emergent meaning created by the human-machine cooperation. The mirror is sharper now. At times it reveals a self we did not know we preferred. At other times it flatters, or it copies without consent. On the podcast, I present these distinctions as a conversation because listeners need both clarity and invitation. So imagine our exchange recast for audio, a bit more dialogic, where I give the plain answer and then expand for the curious listener.
From YouTube work, Praxis, and Nexus, you advocate the skills that define the best version of ourselves, or what you call in your book, the vanguard leader of the future or emotional alchemist. You say these are essential in the age of AI. Elena, explain it further. So EQ is emotional and ethical intelligence, the felt human response and moral context. AIQ is AI intelligence, the transparency, provenance, and algorithmic mechanics. SSQ is social and sustainable intelligence, the social impact, equity, and ecological footprint. Use these together always. Many want to know your niche and your idea of the empowered human of the future.
This is core. Let's put it together first. EEQ. Can the work move us and why? Start with structured reception. Curators and educators can deploy a short reception survey for viewers. Bodily responses, associative memories triggered, narratives that form spontaneously. Combine qualitative with biometric proxies if possible, skin conductance, gaze heat maps, but always pair data with interviews. Meaning isn't a score, it's a constellation. The point is to treat feeling as evidence, not as mystical exception. Emotion is data when you collect it with care. Second, AIQ. What did the machine actually do? This is the technical bit. Are you saying we must interrogate the black box?
Absolutely, I can't agree more. Transparency matters. Ask 3 required questions of any AI artwork. Provenance. What dataset trained the model? Were the datasets ethically sourced and diverse?
Process. Was the output generated from a trained model, a curated prompt, or hybrid human-machine co-creation? Intervention. What post-processing or human editing occurred? If an image was produced by an uncredited dataset scraped without consent, that's an ethical red flag and a legitimacy problem. If the artist used the model as a brush but led cultural critique intentionally, that is different and defensible. Say an AI portrait that goes viral. AIQ scrutiny would trace whether the model was trained on that artist's corpus. If yes, did the artist consent? Was the result a homage or an uncredited mimicry?
Then third is social sustainable intelligence, necessary to our environment, social ecosystems, and planet, SSQ. But who benefits? Whose stories are told? This is the social justice bit, and it's non-negotiable.
Social sustainable pact asks, who gains economically from the artwork? Does the artwork consolidate cultural power? Is it deployed to erase minority voices or to amplify them? For instance, an AI tool that replicates indigenous motifs without community input is not just aesthetic theft, it perpetuates epistemic violence. Conversely, a co-created project that uses AI to restore lost patterns, guided by the originating community, can be restorative. In fact, we evaluate art for justice as well as beauty. Precisely. Beauty without justice is hollow. Art is a social act. Algorithms are not neutral. The SSQ lens insists we measure externalities, carbon cost of training models, labor conditions of dataset curators, and the distribution of economic returns.
So, Elena, this tri-lens sounds rigorous, but how do we operationalize it? Our listeners, artists, curators, educators, want a checklist. Give us a short, actionable audit.
Here it is. A 5-point audit any gallery, student, or studio can run in under an hour. Provenance check. Obtain a model lineage, dataset sources, training parameters, authorship notes. If unavailable, flag and inquire. Reception snapshot. Run a 5-question viewer survey immediately post-viewing. Sample at least 30 viewers. Summarize thematic responses. Contextual statement. Ask the artist to publish a 300-word statement, intention, method, ethical stance, and expected social impact. Community consent review. If cultural motifs are used, verify community consultation and consent. Sustainability note. Provide an energy estimate for the model run and disclose any offsets or mitigations.
That's practical. Now, let's be provocative. Can AI create original meaning, or is it forever mimicry? Originality is a moving target. Historically, every new medium was first derided as mechanical reproduction, then assimilated into art. AI's generative systems recombine data in ways that can produce emergent novelty. The question is whether novelty maps to meaning. Sometimes it does, when recombination produces a new metaphor or a surprising emotional arrangement. Other times it's clever mimicry, but the capacity for AI to surprise us is real. That surprise can be the seed of meaning if human agents cultivate it. So the artist's role changes?
Yes, the artist becomes curator, director, and ethicist. The prompt engineer is a new kind of collaborator. But more importantly, the artist must act as a translator between machine affordances and human contexts. That requires deep craft and moral clarity.
If I'm an educator, how do I teach students about AI art, language use, environment, social interaction, developing literacy and numeracy skills and metacognitive critical thinking skills, respect and acceptance of ourselves? Teach method and ethics in tandem.
Imagine a classroom where students don't just learn to use AI, they learn to question it, to make it fair, to make it beautiful, and to hold it accountable. If you're an educator who wants students fluent in art, language, numbers, and moral imagination, this is your playbook. I'll show you how to teach method and ethics in the same breath. I am giving in the comment a high-level design, a 6-week module, adaptable for ages 10-18+. My purpose: build literacy, reading, writing, numeracy, data or statistics, metacognition, thinking about thinking, ethical judgment and collaborative skills using AI art, language tools and environmental data. Here are week's details foundations. What is AI? What is beauty? What counts as evidence? Tools and ethics. How do generative models work? Where do data come from? Consent and copyright. Also consider language and culture, translation, nuance, rhetorical choices, writing with and against AI. Data and environment, sensors, datasets, basic statistics from local environment. Creative synthesis, AI art plus data storytelling plus civic proposal. Exhibition and reflection, public display, critique, portfolio, and metacognitive reflection. Each week includes 1 mini-lecture, 30M, 1 hands-on lab, 1690M, 1 reflective practice, 30M, and 1 peer review, a critique session, 30M. Week by week, core activities and learning goals upon request. So like, comment I want the week's pack and follow us for more.
Can AI ever understand metaphor or cultural subtlety? AI models encode correlations, not intentions. We know that metaphor arises from relational webs of experience, where one domain maps to another by lived analogy. Current models mimic that mapping by statistical likelihood. They can approximate metaphors learned from large corpora, but they do not inhabit the worlds those metaphors come from.
Great ideas, Annie. I see you read my book, Transformative Leadership. However, and this is key, when humans collaborate with AI, we can leverage the AI's associative power to surface metaphors we might have missed. Think of AI as a massive associative engine. It offers connections. Humans judge their resonance. That's almost generous. AI as a creative stimulant. Exactly. The worry that machines will replace us underestimates the unique human skill. We give context, We care about consequences. We feel responsibility. Problem: a municipal gallery commissions an exhibition of AI-generated portraits that go viral, but are later accused of stealing the aesthetics of a living artist collective. Solution: apply EEQ, AIQ, SSQ immediately. AIQ: audit the models. If the training set contains the collective's work, disclose and pause the show. SSQ: convene the collective, offer reparations or co-curation rights, negotiate revenue sharing. EEQ: host immediate public dialogues. Present the reception survey and allow the community to speak. Operational fix: reframe the exhibition as a collaborative project. Add interpretive panels. Invite the collective to create new works using ethically sourced datasets and publish a transparency report. Outcome: the gallery moves from scandal to co-creation. Trust is rebuilt. The scandal becomes a learning moment and a model for other institutions.
That is actionable and shows how ethics and aesthetics interlock. Final big question, should we be afraid?
Fear without frameworks paralyzes. We should be vigilant and proactive. We must legislate provenance, reward transparent practice, and design institutions that valorize repair and inclusion. At the same time, we must not surrender curiosity. The aesthetics of our future will be hybrid. If we steward these tools with EEQ, AIQ, and SSQ, if we rehearse humility and insist on accountability, we can harvest new imaginations without repeating old injustices. I invite listeners to a simple practice. The next time you encounter AI art, ask 3 quick questions before your emotion. Who made this? What was the dataset? Who benefits? If you care, write to the gallery, ask for the artist's statement, support ethical practice. Small civic acts change the rules of cultural production.
Dr. Elena Carruba, thank you. That was precise, humane, and a little bit prophetic. Let's keep the conversation public, curious, and accountable. If you found this episode useful, hit like, share with a friend who curates or teaches, and subscribe. We'll bring you more conversations that shape policy and practice. Until next time.
Thank you for having me.